Hello, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about creating a budget for your churches. So, budgets are really important. What you've got to do is create these things, put them into a format so that you can follow, so you can track back to them, go back and see how you're doing against what you expected. Also, plan for the future. And we're going to go through a few steps in order to create one. One of the most important steps that we're not going to go through is you need to have a good set of financial statements. If your financial statements are wrong, then you won't get anything useful out of this because you'll think you're getting $10,000 a month in tithes, but you're actually getting $7,000. And if you have that type of gap in there, it's pointless to try to plan. So you've got to make sure that your financial statements are correct. You've got to make sure that you've got good data that you're putting in here, or you're going to get out garbage and not reach what you expect. But let's go ahead and get started on how to do this. So this is our workbook on how to create a budget. So it's a step-by-step instructions. You can get more detailed than this, or you can get less detailed than this. It doesn't really matter. I like a reasonably detailed budget, unless I'm going to go present it, and then I make it a little bit less detailed because people do get lost in the details. They'll be like, "Oh, I see that you have $300 for the year for kids' toys." Um, don't call it kids' toys. Call it, the junior church program or kids programs, and put everything under that. So that way you have a little bit of flexibility because people will go, "Why didn't you hit that number? But you hit the, you went over on kids' activities." So don't get so into the details with everybody that they're going to get lost and get confused and get stressed out about it. A presented budget created at a high level, an internal budget created at a low level, or a more detailed, granular level, so that you can really see what you expect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over the giving pattern snapshot. So this is how much money is coming in. Fixed versus flexible expenses. So a fixed expense is something that doesn't really change over a year. Utilities or insurance are a great example. So your insurance may go up every year, but it's something that's going to relatively remain the same every month over the year. Utilities, while they will change a little bit, some people are in like a payment program or a budget program where it stays the same over a 12-month period. A lot of people are not, so it will change based on weather patterns and stuff like that, how much AC, how much heat you have to use. A cash buffer. So a cash buffer would just be, cash buffer would be how much money do we want to have in a bank at kind of our lowest point. So if we have a couple of months where we're not going to be collecting much money, historically that's been over summers. People go on vacations, people are away, they're not giving as much. How are you going to get through those times? And then a shortfall priority list. So let's say your budget is not reaching where it's supposed to be. What's the first thing, the second thing, the third thing to get cut? It's really important to plan ahead on this sort of thing because it creates a very emotional moment. It's a very hard moment. We've gone through this with a lot of different people where we have to go cut something from the budget or many things from the budget. Having this already laid out, this plan ahead when times are good, makes it much easier because then you just pull out the plan and say, okay, here was the plan. What are we going to do? And it's already created for you. That guide is created. So plan ahead. All right. So down here is the first tab. You go to the giving pattern. Now, each month, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, all the way down to December. So what we would do is we would say year one giving. Now I use this as the oldest year, okay? Then the second oldest year, and then the previous year. So let's say in January we collect 5,000, and then the next year we collected 7,500, and then the last year we collected $9,000. And here we did 3,200, 4,800, 2,300. Then we'll do 7,000, 7,000, or 700, and 7,000. And then let's just fill in some more numbers. So I did that $53,000 on purpose. Now, the reason that I'm putting in some of these numbers, a lot of these are just random numbers that don't really have any basis in anything. What you would need to do is pull out your financial statements and fill in these numbers from your financial statement. So that'll be towards the top, or should be towards the top. It'll be your revenue numbers. Now, you could do your missions and your tithing, or your general fund, or whatever funds you want to do. I would tend to do the entire thing. All of the money that comes in, I would put on here. You could pick something out if you want to, but I believe it's better if you stick all of the money that comes in on the sheet. All right. Now, for planning purposes, we looked at this, and for the most part, there's no major differences between any of the given months. So we have a high month of obviously 21,767, and we have a low month of 3,433. Now, because of this one random high month, I would go back and I would look what happened in that month that's going to make these numbers seem off. Because if I'm planning at $21,000 and it was just a one-off gift, right? Somebody made a grant to the church. So there's a program called like Jehovah Jireh, which will do a $50,000 grant to your church. Okay. So let's say they gave you $50,000 and you're including that on here because it was money that came in. Well, if we don't normalize this, you're going to be saying, wow, I expect to bring in all of this money, this $90,000 on average, when really that's not going to happen. So let's say that was a $50,000 grant. What I would do is I'd come over here in the notes and I would write year 3 received $50,000 grant, and then drop this down to whatever it was that happened without that grant. It's quite the large difference. And for planning purposes, that was like 20-something% change, over a 20% change to what we would expect to come in for the year. So if we didn't adjust for this, it would not work out well. We would be planning for too much money. So we now have our revenue budget. All right, we can reasonably expect money to come in like this. Now, if there's something that you know, all right, if there's something knowable in here, I know I'm going to receive X amount of dollars that's well outside of the normal, you can account for that in here. However, this is a conservative budget. Plan off of this. So then the next piece that we go to is the fixed versus flexible. So fixed things are things such as staff salaries, rent, mortgage, utilities, insurance. You can have other fixed costs. Okay, so anything in yellow you fill in. Anything that's not in yellow you do not fill in. So these annual amounts we'll go ahead and calculate. So let's say the staff salaries is we have a $30,000 per year. Now, remember, this is a monthly amount. So I usually look at things annually, but you can put them in monthly. Rent and mortgage, so let's say that's going to be $2,000 a month. Utilities, $250 a month. Insurance, $560 a month. So as you can see, it's annualizing these things. All right, flexible costs. So these are things that you have more control over. You don't necessarily have to spend it. You would like to spend it, but it's going to be more changing than a fixed thing that's going to come out every single month. So let's say for ministry programs for the entire year, I'm going to spend $10,000. And for events, we're going to spend on $700 a month, and then discretionary / projects. You can put really whatever it is that you want in here. Let's say you want to have a building fund, or let's say there's going to be repairs on the building that you're going to need to do. If you want groundskeeping or landscaping, you're going to need a snow removal if you live up north. You're going to need anything that's going to kind of change over time. So we'll put down for discretionary projects $800 a month. All right. So we now have a fixed monthly budget of $7,643. What that is it's $5,310 of fixed cost, $2,333 of flexible cost, and that's where we come out. All right. Now the question becomes, does that fit? Right? Do we have enough money? So when we come over here, total monthly fixed costs is the things that we can't really get out of. So we have to make a decision. How much money, how much cash reserve do we want to have on hand? So let's say we want to have $7,000 cash on hand. All right. So we need to, how much money do we need in order to meet that reserve? Or sorry, let's say we have $7,000 on hand now. We're good. But if we only have $2,000 on hand, well, we have a $3,300 shortfall. And then we have to decide how many months you'd like to take to reach this. So how much time do we need in order to build up that reserve? So let's say we want to do it in 3 months. So every month we need to set aside $1,103. So this is kind of like the Dave Ramsey program, right? He wants you to set aside an emergency fund. This is your emergency fund. It's the thing that's going to get you through the hard times when you're going to be struggling to pay your bills. All right, and then the last thing, the shortfall priority. All right, what is it that we're going to cut if we need to cut something? So if we're running out of money, what do we got to do? All right, so I would come back over here to the Fits and Flexible and say, well, first thing we're going to have to cut is events. All right, and then the monthly amount, that was $700. Okay, if cash runs short, cut out events per month. Okay, and the next thing, discretionary / projects, and that's when we'll take out the discretionary part. And that was $800. So we are going to go ahead and work our way backwards on this list. All right, so the first thing we're going to cut is actually discretionary, and the second thing we're going to cut is events. So we're kind of prioritizing them. So we have our plan. So we know about how much money we expect to come in. We know about how much money we expect to go out. We know how much money we need to save in order to reach our emergency fund goal. And then what we have to do is every month we would want to come back here, look at our budget, and say, okay, we collected X amount of dollars. How close were we? All right, we collected X amount of dollars. How close were we? All right, we spent this. What happened? Oh, you know what? We have an annual budget for $10,000 to repair the building, and we ended up spending $9,000 this month, but we don't expect anything else to happen over the year, so we're doing okay. Or the water heater went and the HVAC system went. Well, that one really hurt. So you can see that variance, and then you want to explain the variance to understand. Explaining that variance helps you make plans in the future. It helps you understand. But if you don't have a baseline, you don't have that budget, you can't come back and you won't really think about it. Now, I do like to go over what we have on our church management system. So I'm going to pull that over here real quick. So we have built a set of financials that you can go ahead and do. So what you do is you import your regular transactions and you can categorize those, and then you can budget. All right, so you can create your budget, but then you have to put it in here. You have to put it in manually, but it will do that variance analysis for you so that you can see how you're doing against your budgeted amounts. So it is a tool to help you see this without having to do quite as much manually. And then you can go ahead and you can present it to the deacon board or the trustee board or finance board, whatever board it is that's working on, or whatever group it is that's paying attention to the church finances. So here we go. So as you can see, we can go ahead and we can put in budgets. And on the overview tab, I don't have any financial data on this one already, but it will give you an idea of how you're doing against your actual budget. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully this is an explanation for how to create a very simple budget, for how to plan ahead for things that may come up on you later, and how to structure the finances of your church to set you up for success. I hope you had a good, hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully you have a good time today. Thank you and have a good day.